thank you everyone for joining today. This is another special episode of Just Shilling, and we have another incredible guest with us today. So, before we do get into it, folks, thank you all for joining. First and foremost, nothing that we discuss today is ever going to be considered to be financial advice, and the subjects that we talk about today are going to be of our own and do not necessarily represent the organization that we're working for, respectively. And last but not least, if it's anything a little bit too controversial for a family dinner, we will most likely avoid those topics here for the conversation. But we are a room full of adults and have so much to unpack today. So, first and foremost, let's welcome to the stage our incredible guest, Thibault. And Thibault, thank you for joining today. I know it's a little bit later in the evening where you are. You're in Paris today, but thank you so much for joining us. I'm on the East Coast in Boston. Let's kick it off. Let's give the audience a 30-second, 1 minute elevator pitch about who you are and the organization that you work for, and a little bit about what you do. And then we'll go back into how you all got interested in this crazy industry called blockchain.
Yeah, sure. Well, thank you very much, Trevor, for the introduction. And hello to everyone. Thanks for having me today. Hope you will find some interest. I'm Thibault Pelé, to kick it off. I am Thibault Pelé, and so I'm French, as you can hear with my accent, obviously. And I'm working in the industry for 3 to 4 years now. And basically, I'm head of product digital currency for Worldline Financial Services. So, which means I'm working on a product and product strategy for almost everything, let's say, related to the crypto industry, from the payment side, sometimes from the infrastructure side, sometimes related to blockchain, sometimes not related to blockchain. But we are looking at all those things and how it will, let's say, impact also the future of payments.
Wonderful, wonderful. Nice and succinct. Very good. Well, let's kind of take it back. And, were you always interested in cryptocurrency, or is this something that just kind of fell into your lap?
I could do the pitch, whereas when I was young, I look into cryptocurrency, but that would be wrong. To be honest, I've always been passionate about technology first and before all, and I let's say stumbled across the cryptocurrencies at the end of my academic studies. So it was, I think, in um, 2018 or 2000, end of 2017. Just like everyone, I would say first, to be honest, hey, there is some money to do, so let's speculate on some cryptos. And I've done almost all the mistake, of course, you could do as a young guy, losing my keys, losing my crypto, buying, let's say, the news, of course. But then I was not working in the crypto industry at this stage. I was just looking at it because technology sounds very promising, and I was very interesting, just like all the different technologies, to be honest. And then I had a very great opportunity when I moved to product to work more on this topic. And that's where I take, let's say, the turn and say, okay, but I have this interest. I feel there is an intuition, there is something behind, and I don't understand everything, and I still don't, to be honest. Let's not be ashamed. But I want to know more, and I believe there is some future around this. And I still believe it, even though it's maybe not the hypest things now. We have AI, etc. But I still believe that there is a future and a very promising topics. So basically, that's how I run into the industry.
Nice, nice. And, you know, crypto infrastructure, is very complex. But what would you say needs to happen for it to be as easy as logging into like your bank app?
I think quite a lot, but I think it improved. To be honest, it improved a lot already. Um, the thing is that currently it's still, let's say, a niche market. There is some early adopters, probably like you, probably like the audience, knowing about the topic. But if you try to talk about it to your parents, sometimes to your brother or sisters, which are not in the industry, they might
Yeah.
say what it is for. So maybe one of the first to back is the use case. Sometimes the use case is not very clear, and it has to be said also that it really depends on where you are and your personal situation.
Yes.
In some countries, the adoption is very high, and they are moving very, very fast. Salvatore, for instance. But if you are looking where I'm based, so in France, in Europe in general, the trend is not the same. But we don't have the same issue first. So that's one first point. I would say you have to look at the use case first. And then once you have the use case, you will have the adoption. And if you have a strong adoption, I think it's a systemic adoption. If you are the only one with a crypto in the room, that won't work. But then if everyone has a crypto in the room, that will work better for sure. Just like the dollar at the time, actually. Huh? So that's one of the things. The adoption for me is everything. Adoption is key. But still, to get some adoption, we can make some progress. And it is on the transparency. On the tech side, transparency for me is everything. I will just take an example, but if you look at Apple, for instance, and the Face ID, why is Face ID a revolution? When it was released, everyone was like, "Hey, but what it is for? I already have biometrics with my finger. I put my fingers on on my screen and it works." But the real innovation is transparency because now when I take my phone, I have the feeling that there is no password on my phone. But if I give my phone to my wife, I remembered that there is a password, and we need to achieve that with cryptocurrencies. We need to achieve a stage where it is transparent. You don't need to worry about your keys. You don't need to worry about how you will use it. It has to be integrated into most of the app, most of the networks, etc. A bit like Apple Pay today. I think Apple are very good at that. That's why I'm mentioning them. But if you look, that's what the payment is more and more with Apple. I mean, if you want to take the bus, you just scan the QR code. I was in Austin 2 years ago. I scanned the QR code on the bus. I just used Apple Pay and I paid my ticket like this. Wow, so transparent. That's
Yeah.
where we should move for the crypto industry for sure.
And ease of use, and as you mentioned, you're right, the UI UX is getting a lot better. Even in the last couple of years, when it comes to being able to, actually use cryptocurrency, at least when it comes to payments and things like that. What else are some of the kind of biggest hurdles that you think are holding back cryptocurrency from being really accepted and used more by the masses?
First, and it's very basic, but the understanding of the cryptocurrencies. Let's say this is maybe there is a lot of misconceptions around cryptocurrencies, and today, as I mentioned earlier, it's a niche market, so it's always about the adoption. And the question is, why would you need to accept cryptocurrencies? Is there a need to accept cryptocurrencies?
Yeah.
In some countries, more and more. And I see myself, I'm biased, of course, but a dynamic in the world. But if you are going once again to the Europe, for instance, there is very, very few merchants, for instance, that are asking for the people to pay with cryptocurrencies. But that being said, when I'm saying that, I'm limiting cryptocurrencies to payments. And I don't believe cryptocurrencies are limited to payments. But that was for the example, but there is numerous of use cases, but once again, we need to find the right use cases. And I think we also suffered a bit about maybe too much hype in the beginning, where we had a
Mhm.
lot of use case for everything, almost everything. And my personal opinion, and I'm sure a lot of people would disagree, for instance, like NFTs, metaverse, I was never convinced, to be honest, because to me that was not the killer use case. And I think now we have some killer use case with the tokenization of assets, but tokenization of money also, stable
Yeah.
coin, etc. And those are real use cases. But I think we are on the right path, and I think in the coming years we will have more and more people using those, especially coming from countries where the payment system, for instance, is not that much evolved, or you cannot have that much trust in your financial system.
Yeah. And it's interesting, right? Because you mentioned just that the use of this technology heavily depends on your respective jurisdiction, right? Some places in the world, there may not be the need to use that, but where there's a lot of, I would say, extreme volatility, even in the debasement of currencies and things of that nature, crypto becomes a lot more attractive. So let's talk a little bit more about specifically, what you're doing in your role, and help us understand, or give us kind of a snapshot about like what you do in your day to day.
Yeah, sure. Quite a lot of different things. But I'm looking at the market. I think there is one key word about my job, which is around product, is market. So I'm trying to understand where the market is going, what are the needs, and as I say, always, we always say in product, but the real needs behind. There is this quote from Ford that we all know that say, "If I've listened to my customers, I would have built faster horses, and instead he built some cars." But I think that's everything about product and understanding truly your market. So in my day to day, it's really looking at what's going on in the market, looking at the technology innovation, basically, play with it, try to, let's say, okay, I will try some this EVM, try to develop a stable coin, try to develop a contract, just to see, to put the hand into it, and try to find some use case and discuss with the market, discuss with the client. And I have this privilege to be in the middle of, let's say, uh, the future, let's call it like this, maybe what I
Yeah.
believe. So the crypto industry, but also the traditional, the trade fi. So discussing with the current actor to see what are your issue, and let's start from the pain point, and from that we will try to see if this technology can help you, or if not, actually. But start always from the pain point and not from the technology. I'm always trying to start on the pain point, discuss with my client what are your issues, what are you trying to solve, and then we will see what we can do. And if there is a topic that you could solve with those new technology or with cryptocurrencies.
Hmm. Do you feel that as an industry that we may be focusing a little bit too much, or maybe in this kind of echo chamber, if you will, and that we're trying to solve problems for issues that a majority of the people that are going to have to use cryptocurrency don't really care about? Do they care about, 18 L2s, or having all these different capabilities, when they don't really even understand the basics of cryptocurrency?
Actually, I think you're right. This is a bit how I see it currently. We are trying, I mean, this is maybe, I would say, when you're on the product, okay, let's take an example. When you're doing product, usually what you are trying to do, or when you are building a startup, for instance, you are developing a first product, then you are going to the market, you try to find the market fit, and then you enhance the product, and then you are going to the market again, and then you enhance again the product, and you have this kind of loop. In the crypto industry, it's a bit like, we develop the product, we develop the product, we develop the product, we improve the product again. And is there a market fit? I'm sure there is, but my point is to say, maybe we are focusing a lot and a lot on the technology. As you said, we've built a lot of layers, etc. At the end, is still Bitcoin, let's say, the queen of cryptocurrencies. So maybe we've come too far, and maybe what now we should more focus on adoption, not marketing, but maybe better integration into the traditional system, so it can become, let's say, a common, yeah, a common use case for everyone, and not adding like ZKP, etc. So zero knowledge proof technologies, etc., etc. Yeah, but okay, that's fine. You are solving issue that no one, that maybe one people are at the time, because no one is using the network currently.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm exaggerating on purpose. Of course, there is value in ZKP. There is a lot of people using the protocol more and more. But you see my point. I think maybe it's time also to step back a bit, try a bit to stop the development of the technology, and now really going, okay, no, we will focus on the use and try to get more partners to integrate more the technology into existing infrastructure.
Yeah. And there's obviously a lot of conversation today about stable coins. It's becoming, I would say, more common for anyone that is in the industry, and in headlines and traditional media are talking about a lot more. And a lot of people are calling it, the Trojan horse, if you will, into getting into cryptocurrency, or making a lot more common knowledge, if you will. So, can you talk to us a little bit about just the distinction between stable coins and something else as well too is very controversial depending on whoever's speaking about it, but central bank digital currencies. And maybe even before we get into that a little bit more, because this is something that you work with, and near, it's near and dear to you, what is the essence or the definition of how you would define a central bank digital currency, and why was it created in the first place?
There would be a lot to say on that part, but I will try to be, let's see, exhaustive. So CBDC, central bank digital currencies, are money, digital money that is being issued by a central bank. That is quite simple. Now we need to distinguish two things in the world. First, to understand that there is commercial money and there is central bank money. So commercial money is where you have your bank account and when you are paying with your card, etc. That is commercial bank money. And sometimes you are paying with central bank money. You don't know it because it's still the same. $1 is always $1, but it is backed from the central bank, especially the cash, for instance, is central bank money. So that's why we say, if we really want to simplify at the maximum, CBDC, digital cash. Okay, we could say it like that. But now, and it's important also to distinguish between three different categories. Let's remain with two categories for the moment of CBDC. The retail CBDC,
Yes.
that is maybe the one that is being explored the most, or have been explored the most, which is basically so cash being digitized, so for the citizens, for the people to use, so a mean of payment for the people to use in their daily life for transactions, to pay to merchant, peer-to-peer transaction, etc. And the wholesale CBDC, which is something different because this is, let's say, a central bank money that is being digitized, but for financial institution transacting between each other, and for what you call the wholesale settlement. So those are two different things to be very clear on CBDC.
Yes, fantastic. And a lot of people, we say that we're already living in a digital world, right? Most people don't carry around cash. We have Apple Pay, Samsung Pay. You tap for a lot of things with your credit card. The actual use of physical cash has gone down dramatically over the last decades or so, especially since the pandemic. So a lot of people would say, well, money's already digital. What would the benefits be of having a central bank digital currency? And maybe the second part of that question is, if there's a stable coin, then that further would help confuse people maybe to say, well, if we have stable coins, why would we need one or the other?
Yes, those are very, very, very good question. And the answer, I mean, not everyone will take it, to be clear. And I would say it's a good news because CBDC is also very dependent on whether you need it or not, and it depends on your situation and your country once again. But it's a bit of story of payments. Payments is always very local. So the use case of CBDC, I would say it will depend on the countries. It will really depend on the countries. Let's say a country, for instance, which implemented the e-cent, so the cent dollar, which is the Bahamas, for instance. So this is the CBDC of the Bahamas. They had issue. They had issue with the cash because there is a lot of island and they needed to carry on the cash between different islands, etc. So to better manage the cash and because the citizens rely heavily on cash, they decided to put the cash into the digital world. That's one example. Uh, in Europe, for instance, there is also the digital euro. So this is still nothing is decided yet, but they are exploring a digital euro. I would say the reason is not the same. In Europe, we are already digital, and you mentioned it. Digital payments, it already exists. Now the question, and there is a lot of question, is what if you don't have a bank, for instance, so you don't have a card? Because if I have a banknote, a €5 banknote in my wallet, well, I cannot go on Amazon, which was quite an issue during the pandemic. So you would agree on
Yeah.
that. And secondly, it's about sovereignty in the case of Europe, because the card, it's not magic a card. It relies on something that we call the scheme, and the scheme it's the infrastructure for the cards. There are Visa, there are Mastercards, for instance. So great, they are a US player. But as the Europe, you may have concern that the schemes are US based by private company. That that that
Ah,
that might be a concern. And I will take an example of that. But during, for instance, the Olympic Games this summer in France, there was the Olympic Games, and there was this Olympic village. So you could buy some merchandising, at the Olympic village. But it was sponsored by Visa, for instance. So in France, I could not use my own card because it's a Mastercard one in the village. So
wow.
I could not use my
Yeah.
card. I could not use my phone. I needed to go to an ATM to get some cash out, but I don't even have my card on me anymore because I have only my phone. But that's an example. They won't make a CBDC to be clear because of the Olympic Games, but it's just an example of why sovereignty is also important, and that's another reason for CBDC. And some of the country might say, okay, I need some sovereignty, so I will build a system for CBDC. And I would just finish on that. The answer is a bit long, but I feel like we are maybe doing too much on CBDC, and I can understand for sure because at the end it really depends on the central bank and how they will implement it. And I cannot speak for all the central bank, but it really depends on how they implement it. But for me, it's not a new money or something like that will. It's not a revolution, CBDC, to be clear to me. It's more an upgrade. If we're talking about product, once again, it's just a new
Mm,
feature, an upgrade. Just like before, you had the plastic card, and now the card is on your phone. Is it a new card? Is it a new payment? I don't think so. It's still the same card. You're just using it on your phone. Well, the cash or the CBDC, it's meant to be the same. It's just before you had some cash in the wallet, physical. Now you will have some cash on your phone. It's not a new money that will change everything. It's just an upgrade of the current money, which is the cash. And it is not for everyone in the sense that some of the people, myself, probably, let's be honest, I will never need it. I have a credit card. I have a smartphone. I'm in a country where everyone has a bank account. I mean, it's working well for me.
yeah. If it's not broke, don't fix it. And do you think that a lot of the confusion around this is because people think that maybe it has to be a one size fits all solution, or that it's an absolute, that it's either going to be complete cash or complete CBDC or complete stable coins? Do you feel that there can be some mix in the allocation of these type of digital assets that are used, and as you mentioned before, depending on the particular use case?
But more than that, I think the it would be complementary, like stablecoin, cash, and CBDC. But I also think it needs to be complementary. I mean, once again, it has to be seen how the countries in the world will implement CBDC. But for the time being, it's not supposed to be like that, or at least in Europe. But the CBDC is not there to replace cash. And I think the cash is very important. I mean, I have my grandparents; they won't use CBDC. Even my parents, they won't use CBDC. They need cash, and they like to pay with cash. If you are going to Germany, for instance, Germany is relying a lot on cash. In France, we are paying a lot in cards, but in Germany, you are paying in cash. So cash will be there. I think it's very important. It should remain always there. It is just, as I said, a new feature of the cash. Once again, I will take the example of the card, but I'm a young, let's say. So when with my card, it's been a long time I've not used my card first, and the last time I used it, it was contactless. It's been even more a longest time, and I've not put my pin in my card. But once again, that's that's feature and that's okay. But if I need at some point because my phone is not there, etc., I will have some way to pay because I have my card. And for the CBDC, I would say for some of the people, first, once again, if you don't need it, well, good news, it's good for you, and you won't have to use it. And secondly, um, I see it a bit like as a safety net.
Uh,
It's very common for people, or at least maybe, but in Europe or in France, that you have your card and you have maybe 20 euros in your wallet. Why? It is in your wallet for months, to be clear. But when you need it and you don't have it, you're like, oh, shit, I don't
yes,
have it. And
yeah,
CBDC, I feel like. a bit like as a safety net. Sometimes it's not working. Sometimes you're going to an Olympics or you're going to a small market, and they don't accept card, for instance, because you have fees on the card. Remember also, Visa Mastercard for the merchant is very very expensive. To be clear, so sometimes they won't accept the card, and you will be like, "Hey, yes, I cannot pay." And that experience, and I believe it happens to me 6 months ago when I was in summer in
Wow.
Bretagne, a region in France. I went to a market. I decided to get some oyster. Yeah, I'm telling my life, but this is a real fact. Huh? And the guy say no, but I take only cash, and I had only my phone on me. And I said, but I can pay only with card. And he said, yeah, but you can go to the ATM. And I was like, no, but I have only my phone on me.
uh,
Maybe it's one time, but if CBDC was there at this time, I could have used it. Maybe it would have been two transactions per year, but still, I would have been happy to have this to have it at that time.
yeah, interesting. Very interesting. And can you talk a little bit from like an architecture standpoint, the similarities in terms, bless you, in terms of the some of the capabilities or the programmability between a stable coin and a central bank digital currency. A lot of people, especially here stateside, a lot of people are opposed to this technology. They feel that it can be quite invasive, right? That it
Mm,
is able
mm,
to add another level of tracking, and that it's somewhat invasive of the, people's privacy. So, can you talk a little bit to that, Thibault, and
yes,
maybe quell some concerns that people have, or
of
just
course.
overall misunderstanding between not only stable coins but CBDCs as well?
Yeah, no, of course, and that's a very interesting question because once again, and I'm repeating myself, it depends on the, let's say, local regulation and the countries which are implemented the CBDC. But
Mm,
and I'm not advocating for CBDC. As I've said, I'm not sure I will use it myself, not because I don't want, but because I won't have the need probably. But to be seen one again. Um, but I would still strongly encourage all the people on CBDC to look at the paper, the documentation of the CBDC to see how it is built. Because you're right on one thing, it can vary. That is for sure, and you need to be cautious of that. But then coming back to your question, um, it really depends first. So if you take in the Europe, for instance, so the digital euro, once again, as it is planned to be, but once again, nothing has been decided yet. Um, this is completely different from a stable coin, but like completely different. It is not running on a blockchain. It is not running on the public blockchain. So you don't have a smart contract, for instance. It is not an ERC20 like USDC can be on Ethereum, for instance. Um,
mm,
it won't be used in the DeFi. What else is different? Everything is different. I mean, to be clear, everything is different between a digital euro and a stable coin. So it is not the same use case. You won't use it for the same thing. Currently, you have your stable coin, and for instance, when you want to cash out from a position on Bitcoin, you settle in a stable coin. You won't settle in digital euro. No, but to be clear, so completely different. And in terms of architecture, that is nothing similar. It's on a private and centralized ledger, which will be owned
mm,
by the central bank, but just like cash is actually. So it should be a financial system from the central bank actually, and it will be kind of a closed loop. Huh, to be clear, huh? It will be what we call a rail of payment, so a dedicated infrastructure to support the digital euro. So that will be in Europe, for instance. Now the question is getting maybe more interesting if you look at the US, because my answer is completely different in the US.
yeah.
Do you need a CBDC in the US? I don't believe. I don't think so. Well, well, you won't have it most likely, no, but at least not in the next 4 years. But do you need it? I don't believe it because you have something. So Visa, Mastercard sovereignty is always US, and you have stablecoin, US stablecoin issued by a US player, Tether or Circle, anyway, running on blockchain. And I don't think to be clear, I don't think there is a need for digital dollar to be clear in the US, because what it would bring, I'm not sure. And I think if you wanted to, let's say, tackle the cryptocurrency and stablecoin industry, then you will need to issue a CBDC on the blockchain. But if you are doing that, you are doing exactly what Circle and Tether has been doing already, and I think they've been doing a great job on that. So there
Yeah.
is no need for that.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, speaking about this and the attitude shift that's been changing recently about cryptocurrency with banks, you know, it's very interesting that now banks are kind of in consideration to custody people's crypto, especially from the institutional side when we start talking about, you know, the strategies of the world and some of the other organizations that are acquiring rather large amounts of cryptocurrency. That's not something that, you know, you probably want to keep on a ledger. You might want to use obviously a trusted financial institution to do that. But you know, we're moving to a point where we're integrating crypto more into mainstream financial accounts. So how far away from a world where kind of crypto lives side by side with stocks and cash seamlessly in people's bank accounts do you think we are?
Not very far. We are not here yet, but from what I can see, definitely not very far. For multiple reasons. But first, let's break it down. The cryptos, it has different purposes, and today, let's say the queen of crypto is Bitcoin. Is Bitcoin for payment? Bitcoin Lightning, okay, but I would say most of the people are using Bitcoin as an investment asset.
Yeah.
So to me, having a bank where you have your money basically, so your commercial bank money, you have your stocks, you have your ETF, and you have your Bitcoin. Wow, is that safe? I'm not sure. It's just another class of asset, just like you could have some bonds, for instance, treasury bonds, beside beside your assets. So I think that is a way to move forward. That is the most obvious one, to be clear. And I think we are not that far because more and more people also expect from their bank to do so. We could debate whether or not we should, with Bitcoin, you can get rid of the banks, etc., etc., etc. That is something that is true. Should we do it? I'm not sure. I'm not sure because for a lot of people, bank, it means trust, because
Yes.
that's where you take your mortgage, that's where you have all your money, and because you sometimes you don't even trust yourself. That's a debate between self custody or a third party custodian. So I think maybe not myself, but for instance, my brother, which is not in the industry, but still 35 years old, so quite a young one, let's say, if he had to buy some Bitcoin for investment, he would turn to its bank, to be clear. And if you tell him that, no, but you will see, I will buy you a ledger key. So you have your private key where you can put your Bitcoin. And if you have like 100,000 euros, you will have to keep it by yourself. But be careful because if you lose it, then you lose it. No, but you see, I mean, we need, if you want crypto to be adopted and to be mainstream, we need to accept also that we have different value proposition around cryptos. Self custody for maybe the hardest believer in crypto, no banks, etc. I'm completely okay with that. But you also need to give the choice to other people to adopt and to get cryptocurrencies
Yeah.
from their traditional, let's say, trustable players such as banks. And we need to accept it is about freedom and about choices, giving the choice to the people to take the solutions that better suit them. And for that,
Mhm.
I think we are not that far because the banks, sorry, or let's say shifting more and more, and they know it's also, let's say, an investment that can bring some money for them, definitely, and that there is some needs also. And I see the banks as a major player that will support the transition to cryptocurrencies actually, or I expect them to be.
Yeah, fascinating. And if the banks do kind of, I would say, you know, fully embrace crypto, does that put traditional finance institutions in the driver's seat, or will decentralized platforms still rule the road? And how do you kind of see this playing out, this battle playing out in the next, 5 to 10 years?
I think that we need to adapt, that we need to change. That is for sure. But the premise of let's say true decentralization, everything is fully decentralized, etc. Uh, I don't fully believe in it. To be honest, I more, let's say, keen to an hybrid theory where you will have some centralized player, you will have some decentralized player. Once again, what matters to me at the end is that the people have the choice. They have the freedom to go to one player or the other completely freely. And if you don't trust your bank, okay, don't use your bank. If you don't try the centralized protocol, well, don't use it actually. But then you will have everything for you with the decentralized protocol. And other people, they will maybe want to have centralized protocol. Maybe more, the late, what we call the late majority, in the adoption curve. But we have to think, if once again, if we are going mainstream, we have to think of everyone and not just to take just the early adopters on the road, but just to take everyone on the road. And we have to give them choice and accept that for some of them, and maybe that won't be my choice, but we have for some of them, centralization is a good thing. Now, in the very, very, very long run, so to answer clearly, 5 to 10 years, I expect an hybrid, maybe more an hybrid, let's say, what to say, an hybrid approach, huh, where you have both world competing a bit, of course, with each other, but being complementary first. And in maybe, okay, 40 years, 50 years, that might be completely different. But to have those kind of changes, it is not only about education, it is about how you grow with that. Whether you
Mm,
like it or not, I'm not thinking the same as my parents. And even though they can learn to code, they can learn the algorithmics, they can learn all the text, etc., it will be harder for them because they did not grow with this. All children, maybe they will grow these cryptocurrencies, and then in 20, 30 years, for them, decentralization would be just the natural way to go, but not in the, but we need, it takes the time of generation. That is my point, or my view, my only view. But so it will take years and years, and in the meantime, I would encourage a hybrid, once again, freedom of choice and a hybrid solution.
yeah, and it's interesting too about from a generational standpoint, right? That younger people, they're growing up with this technology and it's seamless, and for them, right? Even with a lot of the elections here stateside, I think that it's become quite evident that younger people are starting to adopt this, and that using this type of technology, it's much more comfortable and first nature for them. It's not something that it's not foreign for them, but as you mentioned before, trying to get my grandmother or even my mom or any other family members that aren't in this space to even grasp the concept of coming storing your seed phrase and then having to transfer money from one exchange to your cold storage wallet. It's quite convoluted and so many steps that people just aren't able to wrap their head around. So we were
Yeah.
talking about regulation, and this is something that is obviously a hot topic. If you kind of had the ear of any policymaker, what's one thing that you would say they absolutely need to understand about the future of digital assets and kind of the role that it's going to play in shaping this financial landscape?
My personal view, but innovation first, regulation second. But still, regulation can help for innovation, but we need to find the right balance for sure. And sometimes we tend to overregulate, or when facing a problem or a new technology, before, let's say, thinking how it will improve the consumers, how it will maybe decrease the fees, what it will bring as value or benefits, we are seeing more, okay, how can we regulate it? Well, I'm not sure it's the best approach. I think the role of regulators is, of course, to protect with the regulation, but to be very careful also, and to let the market be also, let the market innovate and regulate the bad player. Be
Yeah.
be, let's say, hard with the bad player. That I'm 100% for to be clear. But as other, be more flexible. So be more flexible and regulate the bad actor, but don't regulate the innovation. And I expect the regulation to put, let's say, a frame for the company so they have a legal frame where they can innovate, but don't over regulate, of course, and also think about the small companies, the startups, because more and more those are those companies, or this is my belief actually, that it is about entrepreneurs and startups that are making innovation, that are making society change. And it can be very, very heavy for startups, to comply with everything, to get all the agreement, etc. So maybe also it's good to have regulations that can adapt, with different players, because for sure, at the end, if you regulate too much and if it's too costful to regulate, then only the biggest one will be able to regulate. So the banks, etc., but maybe not the small player. And I strongly believe that the innovation comes from the entrepreneurs and maybe sometimes the smaller player. So regulate with balance, and once again, regulate the bad actor, but do not regulate the innovation. Let the innovation be. We are at a stage where we need to nurture this innovation in our industry.
Yeah, I think that's really true. Trying to find that balance, and it's something that is ongoing. Now, tokenization is kind of this next big breakthrough that a lot of people are starting to talk about. And when this eventually happens, do you think that industries will be continuously excited to take on this technology, or do you think that there are still areas or industries where it's looked at as something that's going to be too disruptive?
It is disruptive for sure, but well, I'm okay. Of course, I'm biased, but I'm really 100% for tokenization. To be clear, because tokenization is another use case for the blockchain. So let's not forget, the blockchain is a technology, and on top of that technology, you have use cases. And I see Bitcoin more as a use case on top of the technology. And now, when you look at the technology itself, what is the blockchain? For me, a way to explain it sometime for the very, very young people, or where I like to really simplify it to the maximum, is when you see, so, and tokenization is about a bit about that, is blockchain as an infrastructure for the IT system. And what does it mean? It means that, for me, blockchain has the potential to be the backbone for the IT system. Or another way to say it is like the universal language. So let's dream of a world where you can go to China. Maybe you speak Chinese, Trevor. I'm not sure. But you can go to China and you can talk to everyone. And you are going then to US and you can talk to anyone, and to France and to Spain and to Argentina, etc. To me, blockchain as the infrastructure is a bit of that, because all the IT system could communicate between each other. So you create a natural interoperability, and that's where the tokenization can really benefit. It's because you can have all the same players speaking the same language at the same level in the same room on the same thing. And that's where you can, well, if it needs tokenize everything, tokenize tokenize like your houses, your flat, tokenize your financial assets, tokenize the car. So when you're going to repair the car, everyone has access to, let's say, the car, and you can see the reparation and all those fixes you've done on the car. I mean, tokenization, what is tokenization? It's putting an asset, which is called RWA, real world asset, on the blockchain. So it's basically giving an asset the capacity to be understandable by anyone. Uh, I'm very optimistic about that, and I truly believe that might be a revolution, and that we should encourage that transparency and all the industry to go for it, for the traceability. If you are going to the the luxury industry, for instance, well, it's very good because you could have traceability. You could remove all those fake articles, etc. Because all the let's say the Louis Vuitton coat, etc., or bags, handbags would be on the blockchain. So you will know which when you are buying something, that you are buying something that is real actually. No, but I know, yeah. I'm very, very optimistic about that. I think it will break the walls. I think it will break the nightmare of API integration and gateway everywhere. We have gateway of gateway of gateways, and we could really disrupt all those industry. And it brings benefits for a lot of different industry. And one example, for instance, for the for the financial assets, but it will remove the intermediaries, so remove the cost, improve efficiency, enhance transparency and traceability of the transaction, be able to fractionalize, for instance, your asset, which is not that easy, or you could do it better. No, for me, it's really something that has a it's the killer use case. Tokenization is the killer
Yeah.
use case, and of course, you will need a way to pay for that, and that's where I think maybe cryptocurrencies at Bitcoin in the future may play a role, but currently stablecoin could already play a role, and they are already playing a role in that industry.
Yeah, yeah. One of the questions from the audience is, how far away do you think mass tokenization is? This individual, they believe that 2032 kind of seems like a right time, and that's 7 years from now. In technology, that's not that long from now, right? A lot of 2030 is another key year for a lot of the
Yeah,
kind of big think tanks and things like that, for a lot of these initiatives to be set. So kind of realistically, how far away do you think that we are from mass adoption when it comes to tokenization?
but not that far this time, I would say. Not that because I think technically we have the capacity to do it. The challenge is more about the adoption, but actually it's not really about the adoption because, for instance, when you're buying your stocks through your trading interface, whether it's tokenized or not, it's not your concern. So you see, it's quite easy actually to tokenize for the industry to just put the asset in the blockchain, so tokenize the asset, and then to just let's say redirect their interfaces to the blockchain. So I really think 2032. I would expect maybe even earlier. To be honest, I would
Mm,
even maybe
yeah.
earlier because I think when it will start, it will not start slowly, but it will really boom. So I would say I expect a start from 2027. That is my guess. We have to commit to something. So
Yeah, we're not gonna we're
let's
not
stick
gonna
by
hold
that
you
guess.
to it. I'm gonna
Well,
I'm gonna come back
2027 we
2
start.
years from now.
Yeah,
I'm
I
gonna
think we
come back
start
two
the
years from now. If it
mass
doesn't
in 2 years
happen,
from now. Yeah, you come back to me
yeah, yeah.
if it does not happen.
Oh, fascinating, fascinating. You know, one of the things as well too is just kind of thinking about a decade from now. What's something that you feel is a common belief held by most people in our industry that maybe 10 years from now that we're going to look back and say, you know what, that was totally ridiculous. How could we have ever thought about something like that?
Actually, that's a good question. Hmm, maybe, maybe the scam. Let's say the
Yeah,
fact that we're saying industry, not in our industry, but in the let's say the payment industry. Um, all the the robbers or all the villains. Sorry for my voice, a bit sick, but are using cryptos, and then bitcoins is only for the people who have something to hide or
yeah.
whatever, and that bitcoin is a scam. I think in 10 years, and that might even be an issue, there will be people who want bitcoins and people who don't. And I think in 10 years, maybe those people will say, hey, I thought it was a scam. And maybe they will see that no, it was not. And even though there is some malicious transaction on the blockchain and on Bitcoin, there is also, and even more, into traditional payment system. Um, and we should not hold back for that, um, definitely. And also maybe the fact that it's always we have black or white. That some people will say Bitcoin. Either you are for Bitcoin, either you are against Bitcoin. And I would really say maybe in 10 years, the people will say, okay, well, maybe I was for or maybe I was against, but even I should have done something.
Mm,
Uh, you can be against. You can say it has no value. You can say that it's your right, and once again, maybe you don't use it, but it should not prevent you to, let's say, learn on the protocol on Bitcoin what it does, and maybe invest maybe a bit. And it's not a, like I'd say an advice to invest, but at least to consider and not all back. If you want to do it, do it, and it's not because you're buying 10 euros of Bitcoin that you are a Bitcoin maximalist.
Yeah.
It's not black or white. Once again.
Yeah, yeah. And do you think that, I mean, do you have, I mean, this is kind of a strong statement, but do you have any kind of regrets on your career so far of kind of your understanding or where you think that the industry should be, or maybe just maybe some things that now with hindsight you can look back with that kind of clarity and say, wow, you know what? I wish I had have done this first,
Mhm.
knowing that where we are today.
Uh, yes, I have one. One mistake I've done, to be honest, is on my job. Let's say I think I put too much attentions on blockchain as infrastructure. To be honest, few years ago, I thought Bitcoin was, well, just something like this, and I did not understand why it was so great. And when I read, it was limited supply, and for me, it meant everything. I was like, yeah, okay, limited supply, but I did not truly understood it. And now, looking back at it, um, I think on the blockchain use cases like Bitcoin for the payment, and not only Ethereum or Solana for the infrastructure and tokenization. Uh, I think are very, very interesting. And yeah, if I had to, let's say, talk to the Thibault 3 years ago or 4 years ago, I would say, okay, don't look only to blockchain as infra or decentralized application, etc. But take a bit more time also on the use cases of payments around Bitcoin and Bitcoin Lightning.
Yeah, I like that. And, this kind of leads to the last question, and you answered it a bit, but do you ever think that we'll kind of hit that point where, crypto is just not something that's considered for an investment and people aren't only speculating on it, but it's really more integrated in our daily lives, and that, people are starting to use it for common things like buying coffee or paying rent?
I think so, to be honest. It will take some time, but as I mentioned in the beginning, all of that is systemic, which means
Yeah.
when it will start, and I mean not a bit, but it will really, really start. For instance, when you will start to get your payroll, in Bitcoin or whatever cryptocurrencies, when the merchants, it will be transparent for them and they can accept US dollar, euro, Chinese yen, and crypto, and it is transparent for them. So when it will be in your daily life, and the people will start to get maybe, and maybe not again, it's maybe not like you are paid 100 euros per month. It's maybe not you will pay 100 stablecoin euro, but in some countries you are paid like 50% in cash and 50% in on your bank
Yeah.
account. And
Yeah.
maybe at some point you will, hey, you are paid 5%, but that will be the beginning, because the people, they're always right at the end. They always win at the end. And trust me, like, if, because in some countries, let's say they have more value in the use case of cryptocurrencies, so they are using more cryptocurrencies. And there is always very rich people, don't worry about that, that will travel and will go to other country, and where they will come to some country and they will say, hey, I'd like to buy a new car, a new Ferrari, for instance, but I have only crypto. So what will Ferrari do? Ferrari will come to the PSP and say, "Hey guys, I don't care, but I just want to sell my Ferrari. So please accept the cryptos." And then you will accept the cryptos, and then the bank will say, "Okay, but I don't have choice because it will become a competitive edge." And then it becomes systemic. So we bring this adoption, and I really think it will start that maybe, and I mean, I hope that in few years we will start by maybe getting paid 95% as we are paid today, and maybe 5% if Bitcoin or cryptocurrency of your choice. And then it will be the beginning, and maybe it will switch 10%, 15%, and the Bitcoin will become more and more stable because at the end, the Bitcoin, just like gold, it won't grow forever, or at least it won't take 100% per year forever. I don't believe it. um, and then
Yeah, I mean,
it will be the beginning. That's all.
yeah, but as you mentioned, I think that we're already kind of at that beginning phase, if you will. We're starting to see it become adopted and being used for everyday things even more so than I even imagined even a few years ago being in this space. Well, you know what? I really appreciate this. We can continue chatting about this, but I know that it's very late where you are in this part of the world. So I'd like to just leave this last few minutes for us to kind of wrap this up, Thibault,
Mhm.
and talk a little bit more about kind of what Worldline is doing, what's kind of in your roadmap, and maybe something about your organization that most people don't understand. And then lastly, too, what can we expect from you, or where can people follow you and just kind of get more information about the kind of work that you're doing and the things that you are working on?
Yeah, sure. Well, I will start by saying so. I'm working as Worldline, so let's say in a traditional payment industry, we are one of the major payment service provider in Europe, and that's very interesting because in this sense we have a view on the whole value chain of payments, and that's very interesting because that's something that we can but definitely we can see that um, we could keep almost the same value chain but with different assets such as stablecoin, etc. So we have a very good view
Mm,
not only on one use case, which is payment, but we know how a classic payment is working. You have some fraud, you have some cards sometimes, you have some ATM sometimes. So you have all those things, and that's very interesting because then we are on the whole value chain, and then we are providing by basic, let's say, or traditional services for sure, but we are more and more looking at what will be the impact if there is, of course. No one is an oracle, but what will be the impact of those new assets and how we can, let's say, get some benefits for our customers out of it. So we serve especially merchants, but also financial institutions. And the idea is to see, okay, can we serve you better? Can we give you benefits by using those new methods? So that's how we are looking at the things, not in the strong pushing area, but not as holding back, more in the middle, looking consciously, talking with the customer and see what value we can bring to them with those new use cases and this technology. And on my side, well, I hope I will continue to work on the topic. Currently, I'm working a lot on the blockchain as infrastructure. Let's say I'm working a lot on CBDC, but more and more we are looking at things like stable coin, like the payment, etc. So personally, I also hope that in the next few years I will be able to be even more involved really in the, let's say, cryptocurrencies area and see how it is being used almost in a daily life and contribute at my level, of course, but so it's being more and more mainstream on the market.
yes, fantastic. Well, last question for you, and this is something that someone just asked in the audience.
Sure.
If someone was completely new to crypto, and based on what you know so far, what's the one thing that you feel that people need to understand to get into the space, in your opinion?
that's that's a good that's a very good question, and I will limit my answer, okay, to let's say cryptos like Bitcoin, okay, because I really differentiate Bitcoin and Ethereum and Ether. For instance, those are very different use cases. But for
Yes.
Bitcoin, I would try in a very simple way to say, remember that once the dollar was pegged on gold, and if you look at gold, for instance, it is not that different from what the Bitcoin is. If you look at the intrinsic characteristic of gold, well, Bitcoin is digital gold, and I think if you're not convinced, just look at what gold is. It's something rare, but not that rare. It's something that has that doesn't have a value itself. It's something that you can find quite easily, quite a liquid asset. Um, Really, think of it. Dollar was pegged on gold. Bitcoin is digital gold. Now, with that,
Yes.
you see if you're interested
Start
or
with
not.
Bitcoin. That's I like that, that and that's how I got into it. My original interest in the space was just by learning about Bitcoin and once you go down the rabbit hole, it's hard to think of things normally again. Well, Thibault, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for your insights. This has been an incredible conversation. I hope that everyone in the audience got value in this conversation today, and we'll be back again with another great episode of Just Shilling soon. Look out for a summary of this conversation, and we'll be putting up some clips shortly on LinkedIn, and then we'll get that full episode uploaded to YouTube as well for the folks that weren't able to make it today to check out. But thank you all. Thank you so much. And really look forward to continuing to have great conversations like this. All you guys have a great day. And thank you again, Thibault. Bye.
Thank you very much.